Hello, I'm Seamus Donoghue of EVE University, and this is episode 6 of How to Survive EVE Online. In this episode, we are going to get started on the Advanced Military Chain. Now, I've already talked to Cala Baliert and accepted the first step of the mission, so go ahead and do that now. Basically, we're just going to destroy whatever hostile ships show up. Alright, so I'm going to close... I've already accepted, so I'm going to close the agent conversation window. I have my Tristan, which is mostly fit the same as at the end of episode 4, when I finished the military chain. I've been training some additional skills since then, so I can now use the missiles that I mentioned last time. So I've already fit the missile launchers to my ship, and I've also got trauma light missiles in my cargo hold, so I'm going to load those into the missile launchers now. If you're going to skill train to start using missiles, then be aware that the launcher itself, if we show info on the launcher and click on the prerequisites tab, that requires one skill, namely missile launcher operation. The ammunition has its own prerequisites, namely standard missiles. If you're going to fit rocket launchers to your ship, then you need the rockets skill instead. This is not the case for turrets. If you have the skills to use the gun, then the charges are not an issue. So as you can see here, Antimatter Charge S does not have a prerequisites tab. Alright, so just be aware of that. Alright, I've got ammunition, I've got weapons, everything is fit the way I want it to. Oh, by the way, I also trained up some levels in some of the capacitor skills I mentioned last time, namely, energy management and energy systems operation, so my Tristan is now capacitor stable. I can run everything that I've got fit on here all the time without having to turn anything off. I might want to turn off the afterburner anyway if I don't want to overshoot a target or if I'm out tracking my own guns. But capacitor is not an issue for me now. Not with this setup as it is right now. So, I'm going to undock. Twiddle my thumbs. I don't need the scanner anymore. We're not on the exploration chain. Right-click empty space, agent missions, the swap, encounter dead space, warp to location.
Warp drive active.
Now, I can left-click and drag modules around on my interface so that I have things activated by different keys. I'm going to drag the missiles over to the F2 key, which I can do. I can rearrange the buttons however I want. If I want to put the afterburner all the way at the ends of a rack, I can do that. If I decide that I want the afterburner to be activated by my F3 key, I can do that. This doesn't change the fact that afterburners are still a mid-slot module. This just rearranges what buttons I have to press on my keyboard to activate them. Alright, here's the acceleration gate. Left-click the gate, activate. You know how to do that.
Warp drive active.
The in-game music doesn't seem to be working for this acceleration gate. Oh well. Alright. There's the Corelli Initiate. I'm going to control left-click. And I'm going to start... you know what? The guns I haven't changed. Those will still operate at about 6 kilometers. The missiles I should take a look at. If I open the fitting window, and I have to show information on the missile itself, how far can a missile hit? Well, these light missiles will travel for 5 seconds after I've fired them, and they go 3.75 kilometers per second. So, open the EVE menu, accessories, calculator, and let me hit the orbit command around the Corelli Initiate. So 3.75 kilometers per second times 5 seconds, these missiles will travel out to 18.75 kilometers. My guns can only hit out to about, 6 kilometers. Not an ideal setup. I'm going to have to go change that, and I will change that when I get back to station. In the meantime, I'm going to hit F1 for my guns on the closer Corellia Initiate. Control spacebar since I want them to get closer. And I will also fire my missiles. The missiles, as you can see, have a long cycle time. But this is balanced by the fact that they do more damage. Control left-click each of the 3 enemies that just showed up. Alright, F2 to fire the missiles. I'm going to start shooting the closest Corellia Initiate. Usually you want to concentrate all your firepower on one target at a time, but these targets are weak enough that I know the missiles are going to finish off one enemy. Alright, I am going to approach the Rex, pulse the afterburner, I'm going to loot this stuff, and then return to station.
Skill training completed.
Skill training completed. As a new player, you will be training new skills, a new level of any given skill, probably a few times an hour for the very, very early skills. By the time you get to be an experienced player like me, the skills that you're training are very long, and the skill training times are measured in days. Or weeks. Alright, I've looted everything off the Rex, and I'm going to dock up.
Warp drive.
The loot is going to be rather random. So sometimes you'll get loot, sometimes you won't. It'll be all sorts of random different things. All the junk that you accumulate, you can either try to sell it on the market for a good price. For example, this Survey Scanner 1, I can right-click, view market details. I can hawk it for 2,900 ISK. Or I can reprocess all the junk and just sell the minerals. Do check the meta level on the item in question. If it... Right, I didn't explain meta level. There are fancier versions of various different kinds of items. If I right-click this small energy transfer array and show info, and I click on the variations tab, there's all sorts of different variations on this module. They all do the same thing, and they're all frigate-sized modules. And I can click the compare button. That brings up the compare tool. And I can compare the various numerical statistics about them. Meta level is just a very general measure of how fancy something is. If it's higher than meta level 5, that's very fancy. Some people may try to suicide gank your ship to get it, if they know that you're carrying it on board. So you may want to sell it off as soon as you reasonably can. Alright? But anyway, drop the loot off in station. Let's get the next mission. Complete mission. We're given propulsion jamming. Did we already get a propulsion jamming skill? Let me inject. You've already trained propulsion jamming and cannot train it a second time. Alright, so that's redundant. Let's request the next mission. Now here, this is a very particular kind of mission, and it demonstrates what happens when your ship is destroyed. Your agent wants you to fly your ship into a pirate base and explode. You will lose your ship. The agent gives you a ship to lose for the purpose. She's going to grant you an Atron. So, let's click accept. And the game's going to throw text at you about minimizing your losses. Remember to read the mission text and make relevant changes before undocking. So let's close this. We're not using the Tristan for this. I'm going to right-click this Atron. I'm going to assemble ship. I'm going to right-click the Atron again. I'm going to change its name to Kamikaze. I'm then going to drag Kamikaze up into the background of my ship's hangar. If you're in captain's quarters, you can just right-click the ship and select Make Active. And let me double-check the fittings, make sure this is an empty ship. Yes, it is. We're going to go to the insurance panel. Since we know we're going to lose this ship, we're going to select Kamikaze. I named it. And I'm going to click the insure button. Click yes. And we're going to go for platinum insurance. It's always worthwhile to insure a ship if you know for a fact that you're going to lose it in a very short span of time. 12 weeks or less. Alright, so close the insurance screen. We don't need any weapons for this purpose. We don't need any modules for this purpose. Right. And we're going to undock. The mission briefing says she's going to put explosives on your ship. That's just flavor text. The way the mission is scripted, the moment whatever ship you're flying bumps into the pirate base in question, the game will just automatically destroy the pirate base and your ship. Right-click, Angel of Mercy, encounter dead space, warp to location.
Warp drive active.
Double left click, get clear of the acceleration gate. Control spacebar to stop. Alright, I'm going to do something else which the agent didn't mention. I'm going to open a button called People and Places on my Neocom. It should be there by default. If it's not, you can go to the Eve menu, and there's People and Places. I'm going to activate the acceleration gate first.
Warp drive active.
Now I know I'm going to explode, so I'm going to click Add Location, and I'm going to type in my wreck in all caps, and I will click Submit, and I will close this window. I will tell you why in a moment, but left-click that thing over there and approach. It should be obvious, it's the Serpentis Stronghold, at least for Gallente it's the Serpentis Stronghold. It should be something similar for the other races. If you can't find it for some strange reason, it is a large collidable structure, so you can open your overview settings and open large collidable structures. As you get closer, left-click the station and put your mouse over the warp button. Pay very close attention, get ready, because you're about to hit that button when you explode. And I'm just waiting to explode. There. Now, click it. Keep clicking it. Don't stop clicking it. Go, 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 go.
Warp drive active.
There we go. Now, you may have noticed a text pop-up box in the upper left corner. That's an Eve mail, or rather a notification saying that you've just been paid insurance for the loss of your ship. The moment you see that pop-up box, that's when you want to start spam clicking the warp button. And when I say spam clicking, I mean click, 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 don't stop. That's a good habit to get into if you know you're about to lose your ship. Like, say, you've just been warp scrambled, and you're losing hit points, and you know your ship is going to explode. You want to pick some sort of object and
Docking
warp to it.
permission requested.
Just
Docking
keep
request
hitting the warp button.
accepted.
Even if you're warp scrambled, as soon as your ship is destroyed, your ship was warp scrambled, your pod was not. So your pod will take the warp command as soon as your ship explodes. We'll demonstrate that in the 5th mission of this chain. Well, it's kinda sorta. Right-click the agent, start conversation. Angel of Mercy is complete, so we are going to complete the mission. And we are going to request the next mission. Alright, the agent wants us to use a civilian warp disruptor on a fleeing pirate. Okay, and she will give us a civilian warp disruptor to use for the purpose. I think you can also use a real warp disruptor.
Training completed.
I think you can also use a real warp disruptor if you have one available, if you've trained up for it. But the civilian version will work just as well for this mission only. So let's click accept, and the game will throw text at you about warp disruptors and warp scramblers. This text is actually kind of important, called being pointed and being scrammed. If somebody is using a warp disruptor, you're being pointed. If somebody's using a warp scrambler on you, you're being scrammed. The differences I'm not going to cover right now. This is not a class on tackling. But suffice it to say that in either case, unless you've got warp core stabilizers in your low slots, you're not getting away. So let me just skip through this and close, and let me get back into my Tristan. Now, I need to open up the fitting window because I need to make space for this warp disruptor. So I gotta take off a cap recharger because this is a mid-slot module. Right-click the warp disruptor, show info, look at the fitting tab, requires a medium power slot. So it's got to go in one of these slots over here. By the way, I've kind of alluded to this earlier, but I didn't state it explicitly. Let me state this now. Any given kind of module requires a particular type of slot. High power slot, medium power slot, or low power slot. You cannot put a low power module in a mid power slot. Don't read too much into the names high power, mid power, and low power. It's just an arbitrary designation used for game balancing purposes. This is a mid-slot module, so you have to put it in a mid-slot. I'm going to close the fitting window, close this window, and undock. And I forgot that I wanted to change the range on my guns. Alright, I'll do that next time I'm in the station if I remember. Encounter dead space, warp to location. Control R to reload my weapons. While I'm waiting to go into warp, I'm going to go to the market. I'm going to search for iron charge S. Select the iron charges. There's some available in system. Clelanon 6 Moon 11 Center for Advanced Studies School. That looks like the right station. Buy this, and I will get, let's say, 2,000 iron charges. That way, at least I remembered to buy the things. And I will switch ammunition types. Alright, there's the fleeing pirate. I'm going to left-click on him, and I'm going to click approach. I also want to lock that target. I happen to have an afterburner on board. Remember, I had you train up the afterburner skill and get a real afterburner. So, we're going to close the distance pretty quick, and let me see if I can turn on the warp disruptor. Hey, alright, please don't shoot me, I'll leave, just let me go. Okay. We're done here. We finished the mission. Let's dock up in the station.
Warp drive active.
Yes, he's shooting at you. You don't have to stick around. I don't know if killing him botches the mission. It's not a requirement in any event. By the way, this civilian warp disruptor has a range of 20 kilometers. That's typical. A standard Tech 1 warp disruptor is also 20 kilometers. Tech 2 is 24 kilometers. The warp scramblers have a range of 7.5 and 9 kilometers respectively for the Tech 1 and Tech 2, but have added benefits to make up for it. One of which being the warp scramblers use less capacitor. Right-click the agent, start conversation. And it's a green check mark, so we're going to complete the mission. We're going to request the next mission. Alright, we need to find the missing agent and repair his vessel. And we are going to accept this mission. And the game's going to throw us text about remote repair modules. Basically, I've shown you modules that will restore your own hit points A small armor repair goes in a low slot. It restores your own armor. Shield boosters, like this very bad civilian shield booster, goes in a mid-power slot. Restores your shield hit points. There's also a hull repair, which is a mid-slot module. Hull repairs are very slow. Don't try to use these in combat because they are so slow, but if you don't want to pay the repair shop to fix your hull for you, you can undock from a station, hug the station, and just use your own hull repair module. But these are modules that fix your own hit points. This is a civilian remote armor repair system. It will fix somebody else's hit points. Now, I don't need the civilian warp disruptor anymore. So let me put my cap recharger back on. Now, the remote armor repair system and the shield transporters are both high power slot modules. Let me unload my missile launchers. This is not a combat mission. I'm going to clear the group. I'm going to stuff one of my missile launchers into my cargo hold, and I'm going to put on the civilian remote armor repair module. If you think you're very prone to making mistakes with modules, you may want to unload your weapons now. That way you can't accidentally shoot the guy you're supposed to be repairing. I'm going to close the fitting window, close the agent conversation window, and undock. Now, if you're doing player versus environment activities with a friend, you could help your friend out by fitting a remote armor repair module or a shield transporter. Let's see, right-click, a friend in need, encounter dead space, warp to location. You know how to do this by now.
Warp drive active.
So you could help your friend with various player versus environment activities by fitting a shield transporter or armor repair module. They do have a very short range, typically 10 kilometers or less, unless you're flying a ship that is bonused to increase its range. There are some ships like that. In player versus player situations, remote repair capabilities can be very useful. While your own local repairs might get overwhelmed by an enemy fleet's incoming fire, you might actually be able to stay standing if your entire friendly fleet is keeping you alive with their remote repair modules. Alright, there's the damaged vessel. I'm going to target lock it. Let's see, what's the range on this thing? 4 kilometers. I'm going to pulse the afterburner. And double left click a little bit off to the side, or maybe a little bit below, so I don't... Bumping into him is not going to do any damage. I just don't feel like bumping into him. Control spacebar, and we're going to hit, in my case, F4, because it's in the 4th high power slot. Or I could just click and drag it off to the side and hit F8 instead. That also works. Basic systems are operational once again. We have functional warp drives. Thank you, Pilot O. You want him getting out of here. By the way, that's flavor text about his warp drive coming back online. Ordinary damage does not ordinarily disable your warp drive. You could be down to 1 hit point or 1/10 of a hit point of structure, and your warp drive will still work. Your warp drive's only going to be stopped if things are bumping into you so much that you can't align, or if somebody is using a warp disruptor or a warp scrambler on you, or if you're flying out in null security space and you get caught in a gigantic warp interdiction bubble that's 40 kilometers in radius. Or maybe you get caught in a warp interdiction bubble that's 20 kilometers in radius because it's being put up by a ship called a heavy interdictor. Simple damage does not ordinarily shut down your micro warp drive. I can't think of the last time simple damage ever shut down my warp drive. I don't think it's ever happened, actually. Right-click the agent, start conversation. Green checkmark. Complete the mission, and you are given remote armor repair systems. Or for the Caldari or Minmatar, it might be shield emission systems. So right-click, inject that skill. Requires repair systems level 2. Right. I know what I'm going to queue up next. Where's repair? Mechanics, here we go. Repair systems, level 2. And I will click apply. Alright. Every so often, you should probably take a look at what you are training your skills into. Make sure you've always got at least 24 hours worth of stuff. By the way, whenever CCP does a major update, like say a new expansion, always make sure you have at least 3 days worth of stuff in your skill training queue. So your last skill is going to be at least 3 days long just by itself. Alright? You always want something long in there just in case the servers are down for an inordinately large amount of time. It's happened before. Alright, so A Friend in Need is complete. Let's request the next mission. The Stand. Make a stand to the pirate base, destroy at least one ship, and survive for as long as you can against the reinforcements that come. This is the other mission in the advanced military chain where you will lose your ship. So I am going to click accept. The agent will give us an Atron to lose for the purpose. Okay. The game throws more text at you. This is important. Although I've touched on this before, it's worth reviewing. Losing a ship is an inevitable part of EVE, so you should be ready for it. On its demise, you will survive the explosion aboard an emergency capsule, also named Pod, protecting your fragile self from the harshness of space. While NPCs do not attack a capsule, other players will, and having it destroyed means death of your current body. When that happens, you will always wake up in a new clone located inside a medical station. This process is commonly referred to as being pod killed. Keeping your clone up to date remains an utmost necessity. Each clone has a certain quality, which includes a maximum number of skill points. If your clone does not entirely cover your character's skill point pool, you will lose 5% of the difference between the clone you had during the pod kill and the skill points trained. So for example, if you had 1,000,000 skill points and you were pod killed while you only had a clone alpha, which covers 900,000, that's 100,000 in excess. You lose 5% of that. In other words, you lose 5,000 skill points. Right? If you're one of the really old players in EVE Online who has 100 million skill points and you get pod killed with only a clone alpha, and that's 99 million skill points in excess, you're going to lose 5% of that, which is almost 5 million skill points. That's going to hurt. Always keep your clone up to date. So, we're going to open the medical service. Click Next. After each pod kill, you will have to upgrade your clone to your current skill point value or higher. Press the Upgrade Clone button and select from the list the most suitable clone for you. You can also change the location of your medical clone by selecting Change Station, which you can't see because the tooltip is covering that button, but the Change Station should be right here. Always make sure the selected station is not going to fall into enemy hands if it's located in unsecured space. In other words, preferably security level 0.1 or higher, because that's Empire space. Those stations will never change control. Those are NPC stations. Otherwise, you may be locked out of useful station services when waking up in your new clone. Click Next. Once your clone has been upgraded, you can head safely into battle without fear of losing skill points. Just remember to repeat these steps should you be pod killed again. Alright. Let's close this. That is a very important concept. It was worth me reading that whole thing off to you. I'm still only at 135,000 skill points, so a clone alpha will cover me just fine. But once you get up above 900,000, you're going to want to upgrade your clone, and you can see the list of prices here, as well as how many skill points they will cover. I think the oldest players in EVE Online need to use the clone grade Upsilons. I don't think anybody's going to need clone grade Omegas until probably another 10 or 15 years from now, something like that. Let's close this, and let's close this. And, okay, we need to set up for this mission. Right-click the Atron, assemble ship, right-click it again, change name, Kamikaze, drag it on. Okay. For this one, we actually do need weapons. At the very least, weapons. So, I'm going to grab a couple of my 2 light electron blasters. Shift, click, and drag to merge them together. I am going to load them with antimatter charges. Alright, there we go. 200 of each. That's good. Actually, you know what? I don't think I'm going to use even half of that. Let me drag these out. Here, just 200 rather than 400. So the blasters are now half loaded, 100 each. That'll be enough for this mission. Plenty for this mission. I could probably go with even less. Alright. Oh, we also want to insure this ship again. So Kamikaze, insure, yes, I accept the terms. Platinum, okay. And let's undock. Right-click an empty space, the stand, encounter dead space, warp to location. And in the middle of talking about this, I realized I forgot to warp to my first wreck earlier. I will do that. I will try to remember to do that as soon as I dock back up again. That reminds me, do I even have the do I have the salvaging skill yet? Did I train that up? Yes. Well, no. I have salvaging injected. I never trained it up. Salvaging level 1. That's going to take 25 minutes. Alright. Let's open people and places first. Let's activate the gate.
Warp drive active.
Add location, my second wreck, and click submit. And I'm going to close this. Shift, left click, and approach. And I'm going to start shooting. Of course, I don't think I quite have the range, but he's coming closer to me anyway. Now I'm starting to get close enough that I'm doing damage. Yeah, my range is probably 2 kilometers or something. Here we go. Control spacebar. I don't need to be quite this close. Alright, let him get some distance. Alright. Now, here are all these enemies. I'm going to try and target locking them. And now they're doing all sorts of things to me. They're webifying me, so I can't move very quickly. I'm now down to 7 meters per second. They are also sensor dampening me, so my sensors are not going to work. I can't even target lock them. If I look at the fitting window, I've got a targeting range of 2 kilometers. That's not very good. So, I'm going to lose my ship. They don't have me warp scrambled, but the mission requires that I explode. So I've got the station selected, and I've got my mouse over the warp button. They can control the range, and I can't hit them at all, and let's hit the warp button.
Warp drive active.
Alright. Alright. I didn't remember to train salvaging up to level 1 earlier, so I'm going to continue with the rest of the mission chain while I'm waiting for this to train. It'll take me longer than 22 minutes to get through the rest of this chain anyway. But those wrecks that I left behind in those 2 missions, they will still exist for 2 hours. They'll last for 2 hours total from the moment they're created. So once I have salvaging trained up, I will get some real salvager modules, and I will show you what my wrecks look like. In the meantime, however, we are docked up in station. I'm going to right-click Cala Baleart, start conversation, and there is the stand. It's a green check mark, so I'm going to complete the mission. Next, I want to request the next mission. Use your afterburner to travel quickly through the electromagnetic disturbance to the asteroid colony. I will click Accept. The agent is going to grant us a civilian afterburner. I'm not going to use it because I already trained up for real afterburners. I trained up the afterburner skill. I've been using a real afterburner. I had you do that earlier. The game's not going to be kind enough to give you a real afterburner, though. So I'm going to click Next, get rid of this thing, and let me get back into my Tristan. There's no shooting involved in this mission, but I want to change my ammunition anyway. I've mentioned before that my missiles operate to a range of about 18 kilometers or so. My guns, however, only operate to a range of about 6 kilometers. That's not a good setup. Really, you want all of your weapons to operate at roughly the same range. That's why I decided to get iron charges. Very low damage, but the best range for the hybrid weapons. So I'm going to have iron charges in the cargo hold and iron charges in the guns, and if I show info on them now, they have an accuracy fall off of 3 kilometers, that hasn't changed, but an optimal range of 9,600 meters. So now I can hit out to about 12.6 kilometers. Still not quite the same as the 18 kilometers of my missiles, but there's less of a mismatch between the range of my guns and the range of my missiles. So more or less I can bring most of my firepower to bear at the same time. But I don't need to do any shooting on this mission, so let's close the agent conversation window and undock. Right-click in space, don't look back, encounter dead space, warp to location.
Warp drive active.
Alright, once you enter the next area, you should see an asteroid station. Head to that as quickly as you can. The area surrounding it will be dangerous, but once you make it to the station itself, you will be safe. It should be an obvious object, but if you're prone to getting lost, what you may want to do... Hold on, let me save my current overview selection. Seamus default. Alright, I'm going to go to my utility tab. I'm going to open my overview settings, and I will add... Let's see, is it under Entity? I can never keep this straight. I think... Alright, it's either a large collidable structure under Entity, or a large collidable object under Celestial. So Celestial, large collidable object, or Entity, large collidable structure. I don't know which yet. Let's activate the gate.
Warp drive active.
Ah! The music is working again. Excellent. Alright, the asteroid station is a large collidable object. So that's under Celestial. Left-click it, and hit approach, and turn on the afterburner. The civilian afterburner would have given you a much smaller speed boost, but with a real afterburner, I'm pushing 800 meters per second. I'm going to cover this distance very quickly. And even if I don't cover it quickly enough, I've also got the small armor repair. So I can try to repair some of the damage as it's coming in. But even with a civilian afterburner, which is going to be significantly slower, it's still better than not having an afterburner at all. Good work, you're done. Report back to me. Let's go back to the default overview tab. There's the station. I'm going to turn off my afterburner, get clear of this rock, and right-click the station and dock.
Warp drive active.
I didn't even have to touch my armor repair. The in-game music stopped of its own accord because one of the acceleration gates was bugged. So, when this last acceleration gate with a proper music assignment was activated, the jukebox started working again. I could have just simply accessed my jukebox and just stopped and started the music. Jukebox is in the Eve menu, Accessories.
Login request accepted.
Right-click, start conversation, and complete the mission. You're going to be given a copy of the drone skill book. Make sure... Oh, right. Salvaging can wait. Right-click drones and train that now to level 1. That's important. You're going to need that for the next mission, I believe. So let's request the mission. And this is Weapon of Choice. Your agent wants you to load some civilian hobgoblins onto your ship, and then use your drones to destroy the next pirate that you're going to encounter. That is required by the mission, and drones are good, drones are nice, I like using drones, they're my favorite weapon system. I will show you how to use drones. Unfortunately, I have to wait about 7 minutes for the drone skill to finish training, so I will skip ahead to that part of the video. Alright, I've skipped ahead to the part of the video where I finished training the drone's skill. So, I'm going to click Accept on the mission. The agent gives us civilian hobgoblins. Note that this is for the Gallente. For Minmatar, Caldari, and Amarr characters, it won't be drones. It'll be something else for the weapon of choice. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to open the fitting window. And here in the lower left corner, the fitting window indicates we have a drone bay. Only 5 cubic meters, but that's enough to fit a light drone. We're going to throw a civilian hobgoblin in there. We've only got space for one. And we are going to close the fitting window. Something that I like to do, as long as we're on the subject of drones, I'm going to hit Escape, go to the Shortcuts tab, and the Drones sub-tab. Now you have keyboard shortcuts for all drones engaged, all drones return in orbit, and all drones return to drone bay. By default, these are F, Shift, Alt-R, and Shift-R. I like to change these to buttons on my gaming mouse, which I have remapped to F9, on an Apple keyboard, F15, and F16. I'm going to close this window. But you can keep whatever shortcuts you like. Let's undock. Right-click empty space, agent missions, weapon of choice, encounter dead space, warp to location.
Warp drive active.
By the way, you now have a drone control window on your interface. I'm going to put that right over here, and let me expand it down this way. I've only got one drone on board, just the civilian Hobgoblin, so the interface doesn't need to be particularly complicated. On ships with a lot of drone base space, you may want to organize your drones into groups, but I will leave that to the subject of another video. Control left-click the Corellia Initiate. You then want to right-click the civilian Hobgoblin and launch drones. You can now either hit your keyboard shortcut for all drones engage, or you can right-click drones in local space and engage target. Either method works, but the keyboard shortcut will be faster. And your drone is going to go flying off and will start shooting the target for you. I don't know if the mission is going to be a failure if I use other weapon systems to destroy this thing. Alright, we're done. You can either right-click drones in local space and tell it to return to the drone bay, or hit your keyboard shortcut to do that. I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut. And now my drones are back in my drone bay. I'm going to loot this wreck, and then click the station and dock at the station.
Warp drive active.
Drones are very versatile. On a ship with a lot of drone base space, like a Dominix-type Gallente battleship, you can put out heavy drones to deal with large targets like cruisers and battleships. You can call them back in and put out 5 light drones instead to deal with small targets like destroyers and frigates. You can only control as many drones as you have in the drones levels in the drone skill. You should get drones 5 at some point, especially as you start training up towards battlecruisers and battleships. If you are going to fly Gallente and you're going to fly a Vexor, drones 5 is very important. Because on a Vexor and Myrmidon and a Dominix, drones are your primary weapon system, not the guns or missiles that you fit to the ship. Right-click the agent, start conversation, and complete the mission. We are going to request the next mission, the Pacifist. Follow the instructions from the Concord Fleet Commander and bring the hostage situation to an end. So, I will click Accept. And the game throws text at you about damage types again. Let me get rid of this. And close, and undock. Right-click in empty space, the Pacifist, encounter dead space, and warp to location.
Warp drive active.
Welcome to the fray, Edgar. I've ordered the fleet to hold its ground for the time being, but we're going to send you in to recover the hostages shortly. Move out to the next area where the pirates are. They're expecting a negotiator, but we're sending you instead. You are not to engage unless I give the order. We need to maintain the appearance of peaceful negotiation until the safety of the hostages can be confirmed. I'm going to approach the acceleration gate. Left-click the gate. Are there any other pop-ups at this juncture? It looks like not. Okay. So go ahead and just activate the gate.
Warp drive active.
Alright, good work. In a moment, we're going to request that the pirates relocate the hostages to the prison facility you should see up ahead there, so that we can verify their safety. The moment they've done that, I want you to charge towards that prison and get them out. Do not fire on anyone or anything. Your only objective is the safe rescue of the hostages. Once their recovery is confirmed, we'll deal with these scumbags ourselves. Sit tight and wait for the go order. So left-click the prison facility and wait. Alright, open cargo. Turn on the afterburner. Move in, rescue the hostages, go, go, go. So left-clicking open cargo, your ship will automatically approach. You've turned on the afterburner, so we're now moving at 800 meters per second. Again, this is for a Tristan. Well, maybe it's 700 meters per second. Something like that. Loot all, turn around, double left click in the opposite direction. Let's get clear, click the station, and click dock. Turn off the afterburner. The afterburner makes you move quickly at sublight speeds, but it does slow down your ability to go into warp, so it takes you a little bit longer to align. To align for warp, you need to be moving 75% or more of your maximum velocity, whatever your maximum velocity is right now. The afterburner increases your maximum velocity, so you need to get up to 75% of your new higher maximum velocity. But at the same time, the afterburner causes your ship's mass to increase, which basically has the effect of you can't change your velocity as quickly.
Docking request accepted.
Right-click the agent, start conversation. We have the hostages, everything's green check marks. We're going to complete the mission. Alright, request the next mission. We need to use a civilian stasis webifier on a particular pirate to interrogate him. And we will be given a civilian stasis webifier. I'm going to click accept. You can use the civilian stasis webifier you were given. I'm going to experiment a little bit. I think a real stasis webifier will work. I think I trained up the skills for that. Prerequisites, yes. So let me throw on a regular stasis webifier, and let me also throw on the civilian stasis webifier just in case this mission is not scripted to accept a standard stasis webifier. I'm going to undock. Stasis webifiers are also mid-slot modules, along with the afterburner, the warp disruptor, cap rechargers that you might have, shield boosters, shield resistance modules, and the like. Right-click, glue, encounter dead space, warp to location.
Warp drive active.
So because I had to take off the cap recharges, I am going to have to pay attention to my capacitor. If I try to run everything, my capacitor will deplete in 55 seconds. So let's see what I have here. Get out of here, Edgar. Right. Sure. Control left-click the pirate leader. By the way, the afterburner is important.
Skill training completed.
Salvaging. Alright, good. I will go back to my earlier recs from earlier in this episode in a moment. So, I am approaching the pirate leader with afterburner running, because the pirate leader is going to try and run away from me. So this will go much, much, much faster if I have an afterburner. And I am going to activate the regular stasis webifier just to see if that will work. Alright, I'm standing down, I'll cooperate, just let me live. Alright, the mission is done. We can left-click the station, and we can click dock. We're done here. I think if you stick around long enough, Concord's going to show up and destroy him. Stand down, pilot. Good work. Report back to me when you're ready. Concord can take it from here. And Concord just destroyed his ship. So, the civilian stasis web of fire will work. A regular stasis web of fire will work. Either will be okay. If you don't have propulsion jamming, you can just use the civilian stasis web of fire.
Docking permission requested.
Civilian stasis web of fire isn't very good. It only slows down an enemy by 35%. The Tech 1 will slow down an enemy by 50%.
Docking request accepted.
Alright, right-click the agent and start conversation. And complete the mission. Before I continue on to the last step, I just finished training Salvager, so the salvaging skill. I'm going to get some Salvager 1 modules, and I'm going to show you my Rex from earlier. So I'm going to right-click, buy this, and I'm going to get 2 of the things. And I will scroll down, and let's get my Navitas into the picture. What do I have fit on here? Nothing. Throw on the 2 salvagers. Do I have a spare afterburner? Yes. Throw on the spare afterburner. Throw on an expanded cargo hold. Throw on another expanded cargo hold. And close. And let me undock. Now, in the 2 missions where I had you open the People and Places window, I wanted to demonstrate something. When your ship is destroyed, it leaves behind a wreck. Any other player who happens upon the wreck can take from it first, although in the case of losing your ship to NPCs in a mission, it's possible other players don't know about it yet. So you can right-click. I save those locations, so I'm going to right-click Personal Locations, My Wreck, and Warp to 0.
Warp drive active.
And the Rex should still be there. It hasn't been 2 hours yet. Basically, any NPCs you destroy, any players who are destroyed, if you are destroyed, it leaves behind a wreck. You can loot the wrecks if there is any loot on them, but even if the wrecks are empty, you can make use of them with salvager modules. So, for example, here, let me left-click that wreck and approach, and I will hit the afterburner. And I will start target locking wrecks. Salvager modules, what they do is that they search the wrecks for anything that might be of use. If you're coming from World of Warcraft, this is kind of similar to skinning a corpse. Control spacebar, turn off the afterburner, and I am going to turn on a salvager module on 1 on each wreck. You have to be within 5,000 meters to use a salvager module. And if you're successful, and if there's anything of value on it, you can get salvaged materials. What these salvaged materials are used for is making more ship components, called rigs. Not modules, but rigs. And rigs are other kinds of attachments that you can put on your ship. They go in the rig slots here. That can improve your ship in various ways, depending upon how you rig it. The difference between rigs and modules is that the only way to get rid of a rig is to destroy it. Also, if you need to repackage your ship, any rigs that were on the ship are destroyed, so you can't get the rig off intact once you've rigged a ship. So salvage materials are what goes into the creation of rigs. And if you salvage a wreck that still had loot on it, the remaining loot is put into a cargo container automatically. By the way, taking loot from a container is a theft. You will be flagged as a thief, and the corporation that owns the container can legally shoot at you without Concord intervention for the next 15 minutes. Salvaging is not considered a crime. Concord does not consider salvaging somebody else's wreck to be a crime. Alright. So this is the first location at which I lost a ship. And notice how there's only the wrecks and the cargo container. Nothing else is left here of the mission scenery. None of the hostiles, none of the acceleration gates. If you're going to go mission running on a regular basis and you want to salvage your missions after you're done with each mission, you need to create a location for every room that's separated by an acceleration gate. I'm going to loot all of this. This is loot from that mission a while ago. Right-click my second wreck and warp to location within 0 meters.
Warp drive active.
Salvage has the potential to be quite valuable. Some of the salvage is rather cheap, only about a couple of thousand ISK. The tripped power circuits go for a pretty good price, 75,000 ISK a unit, and I've got 4 of them, which means about 200,000 ISK. That's a good boost to my wallet, which is only about 38 million or so. There's the wreck of Kamikaze. That was my ship. And notice how it's solid. I had a couple of blasters and some ammunition on that ship. Maybe they survived, maybe they didn't. Something survived because the wreck isn't empty. Let me turn on the afterburner because it's taking me a while to get over there. Now, if you have the time, you can record the location of your own wreck by right-clicking the wreck and save location, and save its location before you warp your pod out. Only a good idea in missions in high-security space. If there's a player around who decides he might want to try to pod kill you, don't bother. Your clone is probably more important. So let's see what's left on my wreck. Ah, both blasters and 1 stack of ammunition survived. Let's see what's on the wreck of the NPC. Let me try that again. A small hull repair. That's the loot off the NPC. So I'm going to go salvage these things, turn off the afterburner, left-click the station. So cleaning up after yourself can get you reasonably good money when you're starting out. More experienced players find that the time-money equivalence principle says it's not worth their time. But starting out, salvage can be pretty good. Salvage was good to me in my early days, so I've made a habit of always salvaging after my own missions. The really expensive pieces of Tech 1 salvage are alloyed titanium bars and armor plates. If you don't want to memorize whatever's valuable amongst salvage materials, memorize those too, if you're inclined to memorize any salvage materials at all. Armor plates, alloyed titanium bars. Alright. Anyway, I am going to go finish up the last step of the advanced military chain. Right-click, Control-A to select all, or I can just right-click one of these and select all, and drag it down. And let me switch back to my Actually, hold on. Let me right-click the agent and start conversation. Alright, the exam. Kill the terrorist leader inside the Pleasure Hub, and the agent will give you a catalyst. And click accept. Combat tactics. You can go ahead and read through this if you like. You are warned your target will be using warp scramblers and stasis webifiers. You can go ahead and read through this at your leisure. The tactic I'm going to use is to engage at range, preferably. I'm going to close this. Do I even have the destroyer skill? I don't think I do. No, I don't. Destroyers... Yeah, the destroyer's skill book's definitely not among the skill books. Oh, yes it is. Train that now to level 1. Silly, silly, silly me. But I don't need a destroyer to do this, I think. Let me switch to my Tristan. And let me open up the fitting window. And let me drop off the stasis webifiers, and I will throw on... Where did my cap rechargers go? You know what? My items window has a filter. Cap recharger. There we go. Drag that on. Drag that on. Click X. Drag that down. Alright. So, the enemy will be using warp scramblers. That can prevent you from warping out. So if you're losing hit points and you're warp scrambled, you're going to lose your ship. So, we should prepare. I should know that my tracking speed on my guns is 0.173 radians per second. My optimal range is about 9.6 kilometers. Fall off is 3 kilometers. So the guns will hit out to about 12.6 clicks. The missiles, I know, are going to be hit out to about 18 clicks. So I need to keep that in mind. I'm going to undock. I have an afterburner for increasing my speed, which might be able to counteract the stasis webifying, maybe. NPC stasis webifiers tend to be pretty strong compared to player stasis webifiers. Right-click, Agent Missions, the exam, encounter dead space, warp to location.
Warp drive.
I also have a drone on board that I can also make use of, so that will add to my firepower. I don't want to let the drone get aggro first, because if the NPCs start shooting at the drone because they saw the drone before they saw me, they will destroy the drone. I don't have a replacement. I only have space on board for one drone in the drone bay. I can't move drones from the cargo hold into my drone bay, not without the assistance of fitting services. Alright, those are the pleasure hubs over there. 3 hostiles moving into their ships now. Look like they've noticed you, good luck. And there they are. And they have to be within 27.5 kilometers in order for me to target lock them. Alright, 2 mercenary trainees and the terrorist leader. I'm going to right-click keep at range and set at default 12,000 meters. Well, there's the terrorist leader. I'm going to keep at range 12 kilometers. And I'll start firing missiles. That's the shield alarm. I have an armor repair, nothing I can do about it right now. And I'm going to start shooting the terrorist leader. Okay, right here, pilot is warp scrambling me. And the other symbol is pilot is webifying me. So I can't go to warp. So until I destroy that guy, or until I do something to him like ECM jamming him so they can't target lock me, I'm not escaping. And it's time for me to turn on the small armor repair. I'm moving on only 175 meters per second. my armor is barely budging. There we go. And I somehow managed to get outside of Stasis Web of Fire and Warp Scrambler range. So those icons are gone. I could escape now if I wanted to. But escape is not my plan. I'm also keeping an eye on my capacitor, but my capacitor is doing pretty well because, actually, you know what? I think with this setup I can run everything. Yeah, I'm stable with everything running. And the terrorist leader is dead. Alright. I'm going to deal with the mercenary trainees now. Not that it's necessary, I just want to. You could actually do this in the opposite order. Kill the mercenary trainees first to reduce the amount of damage that you're taking. And then deal with the terrorist leader who is warp scrambling you. It's also possible to set up your ship so that your weapons have longer range than the enemy's weapons. I think the last time I filmed this series, I was actually good about training up the destroyer's skill ahead of time, so I was using a Catalyst Gallente destroyer. And I had it fit with something bigger than 75mm railguns. I think maybe I was using 125mm or 150mm. I don't remember off the top of my head. And I was with iron charges, I was able to hit these guys from more than 20 kilometers out. They could never get close enough to warp scramble me. So there you have it. The range of the terrorist leader's warp scrambler is about 10 kilometers, I think. And the mercenary trainees don't have scramblers. So that's everything you need to know to get through this mission. And you know what? Let me go take a look at what's on that wreck. And since I destroyed some of the NPCs, the damage I've been taking has been dropping quite a bit. If I want to, I can right-click the Terrorist Leader Wreck and save location. Just call it Terrorist Leader Wreck and click Submit, and I can warp back to this location within the next 2 hours to go salvaging everything. I'm not going to waste your time with doing that right now. I've already demonstrated salvagers, so let me dock up. So all that's left is to dock back up in the station, turn in the mission, and you're done with the tutorial chains. Alright? So what do you do after this? Well, there's a lot of stuff that you could do. EVE Online is a very deep and complex game. You could go find regular agents who offer regular missions, that is, non-tutorial missions, and go mission running as a source of income. You could go playing the market. You've noticed how I've been buying things off the market, but I could sell things on the market just as well. So I could make money buying and selling things on the market. Buy at a low price, sell at a higher price. The exploration tutorial chain taught you how to find hidden sites in space. You could loot those hidden sites in space for profit. The materials are used for various in-game activities, primarily Tech 2 manufacturing, I think. You could go mining, you could mine asteroids, sell the minerals on the market. You could go into manufacturing, you could buy minerals off the market, you can use blueprints to build things, and then sell those things onto the market. That, of course, involves market research. Maybe it's just more profitable just to sell the minerals. Depends. Let me right-click the agent instead of flapping my jaw, and turn in the mission. Let's see. Catalyst, complete mission. And that finishes the entire tutorial hub. Alright. Now, EVE Online is a very deep and very complex game. I am a member of one of the many player corporations in EVE Online called EVE University. We teach new players in EVE Online so as to help improve player retention in the game. right? Because that's good for the health of the game. This game will be more likely to continue existing if we can help new players get started. We like this game, we want more people to play it. That's why we help new players out. So, there are other player corporations that train new players. I don't remember the names of all of them off the top of my head. EVE University is the biggest and the oldest of them. I'm biased. My suggestion is apply to EVE University. So go to the EVE menu, Accessories, Browser, and on the browser's going to lock up for a moment because it's trying to load gate.eveonline.com, which I don't want it to. Here we go. And we're going to type in http://www.eveuniversity.org and push return. Okay. And click on the right-hand side, Join EVE University. Click this link and follow the instructions. All right. Once we get you into EVE University and you get set up on the EVE University's voice comms, at the time of this recording, we are using the voice-over IP program called Mumble. Once you're a part of EVE University, you'll have access to many of our resources. Anybody can look up our class library. Anybody can register a forum account and join the Mumble's public lounge and ask general game questions on the Mumble. But I really do recommend joining EVE University. So you can find that information on our wiki. While you're waiting to get through the application queue, oh, by the way, we do require that you have trained at least one skill that cannot be trained on a trial account. We have to insist that you be playing a full account and that you be able to prove that you're playing on a full account. Injecting something like contracting, for example, will prove that you're on a paid account. While you're waiting to get into EVE University, the process is like 2 weeks long or something because there's so many people who come through EVE University and our personnel department is only yay big. While you're waiting, you can get started on what is called the Sisters of Eve Epic Arc, and that starts with an agent called Sister Alitora. Go to People and Places, search type character, search string, Sister Alitora, Alpha Lima India Tango Uniform Romeo Alpha. And this is Sister Alitora, Arnon 9 Moon 3 Sisters of Eve Bureau. You can right click and set destination, and you will have an autopilot route to Arnon. The junk that you've accumulated here is not all going to fit on your ship. If you go to a full paid account, you can train Galente Industrial, and you can make use of the Iteron, which is basically a cargo ship. It's got about 3,000 cubic meters of cargo space. You can shove all of your spare junk into here, or you can right-click the various things and view market details and just sell all this stuff. Some of the buy order prices are really low. Or you can take some of the extra modules. You can, like the reinforced nanofiber plates, you can right-click, reprocess it into minerals. You can select a range of things. Left-click one thing, shift left-click the last thing, right-click, reprocess. You can reprocess the whole mess. Alright? And then just sell the minerals on the market. That's another option. Okay. When you finish training the Destroyer's skill, you could just take your best ship with you. Fit out your best ship here in Clelanon or wherever you are, and sell off all your other ships, and just take one ship with you, having gotten rid of everything from Clelanon, and then just head out from here. Alright. So you can run the Sisters of Eve Epic Arc. The Sisters of Eve Epic Arc, called the Bloodstained Stars, is a 50-mission-long chain that sends you all over high-security space. And it's also intended for new players just coming out of the tutorials. It's very unlikely any other players would have bothered you while you're trying to do the tutorials. If I remember correctly, it's a violation of CCP policy to be interfering with new players who are in the tutorials. Once you're out of the tutorials, however, and you've started on the Bloodstained Stars, it's a multiplayer sandbox. You can do whatever you want to, so can everybody else. Alright. Oh, that reminds me. One of the CCP employees, CCP Wrangler, I forget his real name, but he's codenamed CCP Wrangler, has been quoted as saying, "EVE is not designed to look like a cold, harsh, and dangerous place. It's designed to be a cold, harsh, and dangerous place." I might be paraphrasing that from memory. There are activities that are permitted in EVE Online that would get you banned from other games. You could try to infiltrate some player corporation, and when they start trusting you too much, you can steal all their assets and whatever money you have access to and run. Whereas in World of Warcraft, if you tried to rob the guild bank, the game masters would come down on you like a ton of bricks and ban your account, and put everything back where it came from. Right. In low or null security space, other players can shoot at you unprovoked. There is no Concord police outside high security space. Even in high security space, other players can still shoot at you unprovoked. It's just a gamble of whether or not they can destroy your ship fast enough before the Concord shows up. In 0.5 security, the lowest security at which Concord will show up at all, their response time is 15 seconds before they show up and start doing things.
Skill training completed.
I finished training the destroyer skill. Okay. So, other players can try to destroy your ship in high security space before the Concord police can react, and the accomplice who never fired a shot can steal everything. So you don't want to carry too much valuable stuff on one ship. Players can try to scam you out of your money. Scams involving in-game ISK and assets are perfectly fine, with the sole exception of anything related to any of CCP's official efforts, like, say, the Plex for Good program, where every Plex you contract to an official CCP character will go to donations to help the victims of the hurricane in Haiti, or the earthquake in Japan, or what have you. Those types of anything like that, CCP will explicitly state that scams involving that activity are prohibited. Without such an explicit statement, assume that all scams involving in-game assets and materials are legal. It's legitimate gameplay. Trust is a valuable commodity. Be very careful of who it is that you trust. If you trust the wrong person to help you on your mission, they could steal the mission objective item and insist that you pay them your entire wallet before they'll give it back. Your alternative being to fail the mission. Alright. So like I said, EVE Online, a deep and complex game, but it's also a cold, dark, and dangerous place. Right. You will need the help of friends to help you get oriented, and again, I'm biased, but I believe EVE University would be the perfect starting point for any new player in EVE Online. That ends this series of How to Survive EVE Online, as updated for the Crucible 1.1 patch. Today's date is Sunday, January the 29th, 2012. This video series is current as of the listed date. Thank you for watching.